Shalom, Israel. Grace and mercy from God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ be unto you. Praises to the highest in that we made it another week to another Bible History 101. And before we get started, I would just like to check and make sure everything is functioning properly. Just make sure we are live. We do have audio. Everything is functioning. All right. So, with that, we will go ahead and get started. Jump right into it. It seems that we are live. We are, we got audio. We got all that good stuff. Let me bring this down, and that's about all right there. So. We left off last week talking about the construction of the holy artifacts, like the temple, like the Ark of the Covenant, like the menorah, all those things that were necessary to the service of the first covenant. So that's where Exodus ends. All right, that's where the book of Exodus ends. Then you pick up with the book of Leviticus, and in the book of Leviticus, it's naturally its namesake, the tribe of Levi. Most of Leviticus is about the Levitical order, as in like the orders for the Levites, right? Some of it's laws in general for Israelites, but again, this is Bible History 101. We're just dealing with the history. We will deal with the laws sometime in the future in a different class, but this is Bible history. So we're going to jump straight to Leviticus 8 because there's only like a little bit of history in Leviticus. Most of Leviticus is laws, mostly even pertaining to the Levite priests, but laws nonetheless. So we're going to jump to Leviticus 8, talking about the history. All right. And Leviticus 1 through 7 is really mostly instructing the priests on how to perform their priestly duties, specifically, all right, sacrifice and things like that. So Leviticus 8, starting with 1, because this is where it actually gets into the history of it, where it is told to the priests themselves, and not just the Lord explaining to Moses, but it's told to the priests themselves, and then they start performing those things which they were told. All right, so Leviticus 8, and starting with 1, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take Aaron and his sons with him, and the garments, and the anointing oil, and a bullock for the sin offering, and 2 rams, and a basket of unleavened bread. Right? So we read about the garments, or rather we briefly touched on the garments that's in Exodus. That's where it explains the construction of the garments of the priests. All right? But the anointing oil, the bullock for the sin offering, the 2 rams, a basket of unleavened bread. He's making reference to the previous chapters here in Leviticus. And gather thou all the congregation together unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And Moses did as the Lord commanded him, and the assembly was gathered together unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And Moses said unto the congregation, This is the thing which the Lord commanded to be done. And Moses brought Aaron and his sons, and washed them with water, right? And mostly when you see, like when people talk about like the Levitical order, the Levitical priesthood, and even with sacrifices are really just cookbook instructions. Like they're very specific, right? It's for a holy meal, right? But it's really no different than following the instructions in a cookbook. And people make it out to be like it's like, oh, this is an impossible thing that could have never been done, but it was done for hundreds and even 1,500 years up until Christ. Roughly from the time of Moses to Christ, about 1,600, 1,500 years. But anyway, I say that to say this: a lot of the Levitical cleansing, which people also make a big deal out of, as if it was impossible to do, a lot of this just had to do with like bathing, right? So like a way to stay clean is like bathing, right? That's all it is. That's why Moses brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. And he put upon him the coat, and girded him with the girdle, and clothed him with the robe, and put the ephod upon him. And he girded him with the curious girdle of the ephod, and bound it unto him therewith. So I actually have a visual representation of this I suppose I can show it on my computer as well, but I can actually point to it here in the room. And I usually don't do this, but I'll get up and I'll point the camera at this poster so that y'all can see it. All right. Let me see if I can just spin this around. Where is this at? You see that right there? You see Aaron and the. This is Aaron and the garments that it's describing here. All right. You see the ephod. The ephod is this right here, right? That's the ephod. Actually, the ephod is all this. Ephod is all this garment that's over this garment, and he has the curious girdle, right? That goes with the ephod. All right. And you see, it also goes with like the onyx stones. All that's a part of it. Then that's the incense. But yeah, let's get back. That's just a visual representation of the garment. If we need it again, though, I'll show it. Where are we at? Let's pull back out. I'll show it because I do have some sort of. Is that gonna be good? Let's see. I do have like an image on my computer as well. I just wanted to show that poster. All right. But that's what it's talking about. And it says, and he put the breastplate upon him, right? That's all the stones in it. That's what I showed you there. Also, he put in the breastplate the Urim and the Thummim, right? So that would be like the onyx stones up at the top. And he put the mitri upon his head. I didn't really point that out, but that's the head covering that he had. Also upon the mitri, even upon his forefront, did he put the golden plate, the holy crown, as the Lord commanded Moses. And again, I didn't really show that. But let's see if I can find the image on my computer. It's not going to be the same image because that's a poster. Maybe I should find that image somewhere. But I do have an image of the garments. Let's see. Of the high priest's garment. Let me see if I can find the garment real quick. It wouldn't be under garment, would it? No, maybe under high priest garment. Let's see. Yeah, high priest garment. So this really shows everything as well. You see the mitri up at the top. They call it a turban. And that's why I like the poster, because it actually uses the words that's found in the scriptures. But yeah, you can see all that here, over here to your left, right? Yeah. There's the mitri and the gold plate. So he put all the high priest, because this is the high priest garment. This isn't the garment for your everyday priest. This is a high priest garment. Only one high priest in all of Israel. All right, this was Aaron, and it was passed down through his sons. Let's see. And Moses took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and all that was therein, and sanctified them, and he sprinkled thereof upon the altar 7 times, and anointed the altar and all his vessels, both the laver and his foot, to sanctify them. Right. So the laver would be like the cleansing pool. All right. And he poured of the anointing oil upon Aaron's head, and anointed him to sanctify him. And Moses brought Aaron's sons, and put coats upon them, and girded them with girdles, and put bonnets upon them, as the Lord commanded Moses. Right? He gave them their garments as well. All right, a little different from the high priest garments, but they're still holy garments. All right. And he brought the bullock for the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon the head of the bullock for the sin offering. And he slew it, and Moses took the blood and put it upon the horns of the altar round about with his finger, and purified the altar, and poured the blood at the bottom of the altar, and sanctified it to make reconciliation upon it. And he took all the fat that was upon the inwards, and the caul above the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and their fat, and Moses burned it upon the altar. But the bullock, and his hide, and his flesh, and his dung, he burnt with fire without the camp, as the Lord commanded Moses. Right? So he just, to cleanse the altar, to perform this cleansing ritual, all he needed was the blood and the fat, right? And the inwards, right? Like the organs. All right? And burned it on the altar. The rest he took outside and burned it there. And he brought the ram for the burnt offering. And Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon the head of the ram, and he killed it. And Moses sprinkled the blood upon the altar round about. And he cut the ram into pieces, And Moses burnt the head and the pieces and the fat. And he washed the inwards and the legs in the water. And Moses burnt the whole ram upon the altar. It was a burnt sacrifice for a sweet savor, and an offering made by fire unto the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. Right. So the first was a sin offering for the priests to cleanse them of their sins, right, making atonement for their sins. This one was just to dedicate a sacrifice to the Lord, right? Give him something to show praise to him, right? And he brought the other ram, the ram of consecration. And Aaron and his sons laid their hands upon the head of the ram, and he slew it. And Moses took of the blood of it, and put it upon the tip of Aaron's right ear, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And he brought Aaron's sons, and Moses put of the blood upon the tip of their right ear, and upon the thumbs of their right hands, and upon the great toes of their right feet. And Moses sprinkled the blood upon the altar round about, right? So if you didn't know any better and you was reading this, you'd think of some kind of like witchcraft, right? Because it is that, it has that same vibe about it, right? And it's because this is a spiritual thing, all right? The same way witchcraft is a spiritual thing, it's just, back door to this type of spirituality. But and if you read in Leviticus 17 that blood is the life of man, right? That's why blood has to be shed to cover sin, all right? It's because it's something spiritual about blood, right? And people in excuse me, I'm just trying to line up with the camera. People who do witchcraft, they understand that, right? That there is something spiritual about the like bodily fluids, specifically with blood, all right? And putting it on his right side, symbolizing, going the right way, so to speak, And he took the fat and the rump and all the fat that was upon the inwards and the caul above the liver, and the two kidneys and their fat and their right shoulder, and out of the basket of unleavened bread that was before the Lord, he took one unleavened cake and a cake of oiled bread and one wafer, and put them on the fat and upon the right shoulder. And he put all upon Aaron's hands and upon his sons' hands, and waved them for a wave offering before the Lord. And Moses took them from off their hands and burnt them on the altar for the burnt offering. They were consecrations for a sweet savor. It is an offering made by fire unto the Lord. Right? So for Aaron and his sons specifically, for this consecration of the priesthood, they needed a sin offering first to make sure that they were that they had an atonement for their sins, right? That they had a clean slate before God, and then they had this consecration, this spiritual consecration, right, of making themselves holy before the Lord. All right, and he used the anointing oil, which only could be used for Aaron, and his that this specific service, right? So this specific service for consecration of this royal, or rather should I say this priestly bloodline, all right, of Aaron and his sons and his sons and his sons after them, right? And Moses took the breast and waved it for a wave offering before the Lord. For of the ram of consecration, it was Moses' part, as the Lord commanded Moses, right? So Moses got to eat of that part, right? You had some sacrifices, as it read, or as we read earlier, the one that was not the sin offering, right? The one that was for a sweet savor unto the Lord, that you burn all of it, right? But some things that were sacrificed, the Levites got to eat of it, all right? And this one specifically, Moses got to eat of it, all right? So all sacrifices weren't the same thing, all right? It was different services, right? Different instructions for each one, all right? And Moses took of the anointing oil and of the blood which was upon the altar, and sprinkled it upon Aaron, and upon his garments, and upon his sons garments with him, and sanctified Aaron and his garments, and his sons' garments with him. You see that right there? So this specific sanctification ritual going on here. And Moses sent unto Aaron and to his sons boiled of flesh at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and there eat it with the bread that is in the basket of consecrations, as I commanded thee, saying, Aaron and his sons shall eat it. And that which remaineth of the flesh and of the bread shall ye burn with fire, right? No sharing with your neighbor. And ye shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation in 7 days, until the days of your consecration be at an end. For 7 days shall he consecrate you. as he had done this day. So the Lord hath commanded to do, to make an atonement for you. Right? Because you got to remember, these people grew up in Egypt, right? Celebrating Egyptian customs. Nothing holy unto the Lord. They've been in sin their whole lives. All right? So there needs to be a transition from that, living in the ways of the world to living a holy lifestyle. And that's really what you see here. All right? Therefore shall ye abide at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation day and night 7 days, and keep the charge of the Lord, that ye die not. For so I am commanded. So, and we're going to see something happen later as we're reading this history that really proves this. But all of this, you may say, well, all this is painstaking. Like, all this is too much. Why go through all of this? This cleansing process has to happen if these men want to come close to the Lord, because the Lord cannot dwell with anything unclean. All right? The same thing that I talked about last week, how the Lord, he wants to be with us. He wants to dwell among us. But he can't when we're wicked, or else we will die. Not that he even wants to kill us, but that his perfection cannot be around imperfection. It doesn't work like that. All right? And the same thing with these priests. If they don't follow the code, if they're not sanctified, if they don't do everything precisely and perfectly, then they die. That again, we're dealing with spiritual things here. All right. So Aaron and his sons did all the things which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. All right. So they listened. All right. Or chapter 9. All right. And it came to pass on the 8th day that because they spent a whole week of doing this, cleansing ritual. And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said unto Aaron, take thee a young calf for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering, without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And unto the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying, take ye a kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a calf, and a lamb, both of the first year, without blemish, for a burnt offering. All right, so the without blemish part is very important. All right, that's very symbolic. All right, it represents the perfection of God and also a shadow of things to come, Christ and the new covenant. Also a bullock and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, and a meat offering mingled with oil. For today the Lord will appear unto you. You see that right there? So this sanctification of Aaron and his sons was so that they could cleanse the whole body, right? So that they can make an atonement for the rest of the people, all right? And they brought that which Moses commanded before the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord commanded that ye should do, and the glory of the Lord shall appear unto you. And Moses said unto Aaron, go unto the altar, and offer thy sin offering and thy burnt offering, and make an atonement for thyself and for the people, and offer the offering of the people, and make an atonement for them as the Lord commanded. All right, so make an atonement for the people. Aaron therefore went into the altar and slew the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aaron brought the blood unto him. And he dipped his finger in the blood, and put it upon the horns of the altar, and poured out the blood at the bottom of the altar. But the fat and the kidneys and the caul above the liver of the sin offering he burnt upon the altar, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the flesh and the hide he burnt with fire without the camp, meaning outside the camp. The flesh and the hide he burned. Everything else he burned on the altar. All right? Just as the Lord commanded Moses. So Aaron, he's a good listener. There's a reason why the Lord chose Aaron, all right? And he slew the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons presented unto him the blood, which he sprinkled round about the altar, and they presented the burnt offering unto him, with the pieces thereof and the head, and he burnt them upon the altar. And he did wash the inwards and the legs, and burnt them upon the burnt offering on the altar, right? So stacking up offerings here. And he brought the people's offering, and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and slew it, and offered it for sin as the first. And he brought the burnt offering, and offered it according to the manner. And he brought the meat offering, and took a handful thereof, and burned it upon the altar beside the burnt sacrifice of the morning. He slew also the bullock and the ram for a sacrifice of peace offerings, which was for the people. And Aaron's sons presented unto him the blood, which he sprinkled upon the altar round about. And the fat of the bullock and of the ram, the rump, and that which covered the inwards and the kidneys, and the caul above the liver. And they put the fat upon the breast, and he burnt the fat upon the altar, and the breast and the right shoulder Aaron waved for a wave offering before the Lord, as Moses commanded. All right, there's a reason why I'm reading all this, by the way. I don't want y'all to get lost in the sauce here. I know it can be a bit much because there's like so many different offerings going on at the same time here, it seems like. But there's a reason why I'm reading this, all right? And we'll see in the next chapter. And Aaron lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them and came down from offering of the sin offering and the burnt offering and peace offerings, right? So after he got done with all these sacrifices, it says, and Moses and Aaron went into the tabernacle of the congregation and came out and blessed the people. And the glory of the Lord appeared unto all the people. And there came a fire out from before the Lord, and consumed upon the altar the burnt offering and the fat, which when all the people saw, they shouted and fell on their faces. Right? So the glory of the Lord in this case, more than likely, is like a chariot or a cloud, whatever you want to call it, descending down in the congregation or right there at the tabernacle. Come down, and then that fire shoot out, which burnt up the burnt offering, right? Which consumed, as it says in this verse, consumed the burnt offering and the fat, and the people were afraid, right? Because it's like, you know, this thing just come down out of the sky and then shot out at this altar. I mean, it's a frightening thing to behold, right? But again, this consecration in this specific manner had to happen so that the Lord could appear before the people, and this, you know, blast, if that's what you want to call it, this that consumed the offering, didn't kill any of the people that was round about, right? They had to be sanctified before this could happen. All right, chapter 10. Check this out. Starting with verse 1. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, all right, his two firstborn sons, or rather the firstborn and the secondborn, I should say, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord, and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Right? So these are two men who just heard all the instructions that they're supposed to do, were following at the first, but then they said, well, we ain't got to do it perfectly. We can do, you know, we just put a little bit of fire in here, you know, put a little bit of ram right there, and, you know, we'll do it before the Lord. But they didn't come correct, though. They didn't do it perfectly. So they got put to death. And again, that's why it's important to come before the Lord in the correct manner. You can't do it your own way. You got to do it the way that God says to do it. All right? Now, praise the Most High for his grace and his mercy. He said, you know, our high priest offered up his own body once and for all. We ain't got to worry about this type of stuff. All right? And truthfully and honestly, if you weren't a Levite, you ain't had to worry about this stuff back then anyway. But not even the Levites got to worry about this anymore. We just got to worry about presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice here in this new covenant. All right. So praise the Most High for that thing, his grace and his mercy. But you still got to come correct. You can't do it your own way. You got to come the way that Christ did it. All right. You can't say, well, I know Christ. He celebrated Passover and Tabernacles, but I'm celebrating Christmas and Easter. Like, God's not going to accept you like that. All right. You can't say, well, I know Christ, he kept all them dietary laws, but I'm going to have a pork chop. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to eat me a ham sandwich. You can't do that. You can't come to God any other kind of way. You got to come to God the way that he told you to do it. Or you end up like Nadab and Abihu. All right? It says, and there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said unto Aaron, this is it that the Lord spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. So this is what Moses just saw Aaron's sons die, his nephews. And he said, this is what I was talking about. This is what God said, that you had to do it correctly, that you had to be sanctified correctly, or this would happen. This ain't even a thing of like, God got mad at them and smote them. Like, this is not even like that. It's that he wants to dwell among the people, right? But he is perfection. He is cleanness in the highest. Any kind of uncleanness or imperfection cannot exist around him. All right? This is what happens if you don't come correct. And this is what Moses is trying to explain to Aaron. And Aaron, he couldn't say nothing. He held his peace, right? He couldn't get mad at Moses because Moses didn't do this. He couldn't get mad at God because God did not do this. Only Nadab and Abihu come incorrect. And Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp. So they went near and carried them in their coats out of the camp, as Moses had said. And Moses said unto Aaron and unto Eleazar and unto Ithamar his sons, right? Because Aaron's got two other sons. Right? So his third and his fourth born. Uncover not your heads, right? Don't take off your mitres, don't take off your holy garments, neither rend your clothes, right? Don't, because that's what they used to do back in the day. They used to rip their clothes and like put dirt on their heads to show that they're mourning, right? He said, don't do that. Don't take off your mitres. Don't rip your holy garments, lest ye die, and lest wrath come upon all the people. But let your brethren, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning which the Lord hath kindled. Right? So he said, look, don't even mourn. Don't mourn with the rest of the congregation. Let them mourn what just happened. I know this is your family. Right? I know Eleazar and Ithamar, these were your brothers, Nadab and Abihu. Aaron, I know these were your sons, but you can't mourn them. All right? We're still in the middle of this sanctification process. We're still trying to get the people right. Let them mourn for you. And ye shall not go out from the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. For the anointing oil of the Lord is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moses, right? They don't want to end up like Nadab and Abihu. All right? And here we see the real problem. Here we see what had actually happened. In verse 8 and 9, I should say. And the Lord spake unto Aaron, saying, do not drink wine, nor strong drink, thou nor thy sons with thee, when ye go into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. Right? So Moses and Aaron didn't even know that Nadab and Abihu had been drinking that day. All right? But God did. And he said, look, they were drunk, and so they messed up some steps, and you shouldn't do that. You should not drink and then try to come serve the Lord. All right? You can't serve God properly if you're not sober. All right? That's what he's letting them know. Hey, to serve the Lord and follow these specific instructions, to keep these commandments, you got to be sober-minded. All right? And that you may put difference between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean. And that you may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. Right? So he's saying, look, you can't perform the priestly service while you're drunk. You also can't teach the people the laws of God while you're drunk. All right? So, verse 12. And Moses spake unto Aaron, and unto Eleazar, and unto Ithamar, his sons that were left, take the meat offering that remaineth of the offerings of the Lord made by fire, and eat it without leaven beside the altar. Right? For it is most holy. Right? Eat the offering, it is most holy. And ye shall eat it in the holy place, because it is thy due, and thy sons' due, of the sacrifices of the Lord made by fire, for so I am commanded. Right? So in some cases, you would burn the whole offering, right? As far as like all the inwards or innards, however you want to say that. And you would burn it to the Lord, and everything else you would discard. Some offerings, they were what the priest was given to eat, right? It said that is your due. And the wave breast and the heaved shoulder shall ye eat in a clean place, thou and thy sons and thy daughters with thee, for they be thy due, and thy sons' due, which are given out of the sacrifices of peace offerings of the children of Israel. Right? So we don't see any priestesses in the Bible, right? The daughters of Aaron, they weren't, performing the priestly duties, but they were still given some of the food because they got to eat, right? So they were given the wave breast and heave shoulder, all right? The heave shoulder and the wave breast shall they bring with the offerings made by fire of the fat to wave before a wave offering before the Lord, and it shall be thine, and thy sons with thee by a statute forever, as the Lord hath commanded. And Moses diligently sought the goat of the sin offering, and behold, it was burnt. And he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron, which were left alive, saying, Wherefore have ye not eaten the sin offering in the holy place, seeing it is most holy? And God hath given it you to bear the iniquity of the congregation, to make atonement for them before the Lord. Right? So they didn't eat all of it like they were supposed to. Behold, the blood of it was not brought in within the holy place. You should indeed have eaten it in the holy place as I commanded. And Aaron said unto Moses, Behold, this day have they offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord, and such things have befallen me. And if I had eaten the sin offering today, should it have been accepted in the sight of the Lord? And when Moses heard that, he was content, right? So Aaron stepped in on their behalf, and Moses heard that. He said, all right, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. So from there, we really don't see any more history in Leviticus until we get to Leviticus 24. All right. It's just laws from Leviticus 11 on into Leviticus 24. And you even get to laws until you get to verse 10 in Leviticus 24. All right. It says, And the son of an Israelitish woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel, and this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp. And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. Right? So he, said something out the way, said something he wasn't supposed to, something against the Lord. And they brought him unto Moses. And his mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Debri of the tribe of Dan, right? And with him being an Egyptian, he probably said something like, I don't want to serve y'all's God anyway, or something along those lines. And, curse the Israelite man, say, I hope you die, and all this kind of stuff. And they put him in ward, right, in a holding cell, that the mind of the Lord might be showed them. All right, they said, what do we do? All right, with this man who is technically an Egyptian by patrilineal descent, by his father's tribe. They said, what do we do? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Bring forth him that hath cursed without the camp, outside the camp. Let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head. Let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, Whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. And all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well the stranger as he that is born in the land. When he blasphemed the name of the Lord, shall be put to death. All right, so to put away sin from the congregation, they was stoning folks, right? And specifically the judgment here, God is letting it be known that judgment is the same for everybody. All right, if you sin against the Lord, you're going to die. All right, it don't matter who you are, whether you a heathen or an Israelite. All right, if you sin against the Lord, you're going to die. All right, and he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death. And he that killeth a beast shall make it good beast for beast, as in, I steal one of your cows and chop it up and make Angus steak or whatever, I got to give you back another cow, right? And if a man cause a blemish in his neighbor, as he had done, so shall it be done to him. Breach for breach, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. As he hath caused a blemish in man, so shall it be done to him again, right? So if we get in a fight and I knock your tooth out, then you get to knock my tooth out. That's how it went in the Old Testament. And he that killeth the beast, he shall restore it. And he that killeth the man, he shall be put to death. He shall have one manner of law, as well for the stranger as for one of your own country, for I am the Lord your God. You see that right there? Judgment is judgment is judgment. All right? same judgment applies. You sin against the Lord, you're going to face judgment for that sin. And Moses spake to the children of Israel that they should bring forth him that had cursed out of the camp and stone him with stones. And the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses. All right, so they threw a bunch of rocks at him until he died. All right. So now once we get into Numbers, a lot of this, as far as like, we're not going to read the tallies, because as it says right here, it starts off with a census of Israel's warriors, right? It goes through all the 12 tribes by the house of their fathers, and it determines that, and it says it down here, that the number of warriors amongst the children of Israel were, 603,550. So that's how many men of war it was from the age of 20 to 60. That's what you see reckoned. And Leviticus 27, it gives you the ages of just about everything. All right, the age of a child, the age of an adolescent, the age of a grown person, adult, from like 20 to 60 is what that is. And once you get 60 and up, you get elder and mother in Israel status. All right, but as it says in verse 47 here, but the Levites after the tribe of their fathers were not numbered among them. Right, so the Levites were made special, were made different. All right, again, Levitical priesthood. That's what the Old Covenant is about. It's about the Levitical priesthood through the, descendants of Aaron. All right. And even, the Levites around them were charged with service of the tabernacle and things like that. Later, when the temple was built, service of the temple as well. So, Numbers 2 pretty much just goes into how they would travel. They would travel orderly, right? Tabernacle in the middle, and then they would, move accordingly. All the tribes in their specific stations, all right? So in Numbers 3, I'm not going to get into this because, again, it's just reckoning the Levites. So from there, we'll keep it moving. And again, the Kohathites, specific tribe of Levites. And these are the duties of each tribe of Levi. Again, order and laws. Perhaps we'll get into that at some other time because it's specifically dealing with the Old Testament priesthood and the Levites and their specific roles. It's good information to have as far as historical context, but again, it's like laws. It's not really history. All right. So this is interesting, but again, it's law and judgment. It's not necessarily history, so we're not going to get into that. And number 6, the Nazirite vow, we're not necessarily going to get into that either. The thing about number 7, this is just, as it shows up here at the top, the dedication of the altar and the tabernacle and all these offerings that go into it. I'm just going to read the sum total because, as you see, it's a lot. It goes into the same thing for each tribe, and each tribe has a representative who steps up. But I'm going to start with verse 84 here. This was the dedication of the altar and the day when it was anointed by the princes of Israel, right? The noblemen. 12 chargers of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold, right? So they would give these vessels, as another scripture may say. Each charger of silver weighing 130 shekels, each bowl 70. All the silver vessels weighed 2,400 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. The golden spoons were 12, full of incense, weighing 10 shekels apiece after the shekel of the sanctuary. All the gold of the spoons was 120 shekels, right? So each being 10 shekels. That's a big spoon, all right? All the oxen for the burnt offering were 12 bullocks. The rams 12, the lambs of the first year 12, with their meat offering, and the kid of the goats for sin offering 12. And all the oxen for the sacrifice of the peace offerings were 24 bullocks, the rams 60, the he-goats 60, the lambs of the first year 60. This was the dedication of the altar. After that, it was anointed. So it wasn't all done at one time. This is across 12 days. All right. So, but all these sacrifices being offered. All right. Verse 89, this is kind of the point here. And when Moses was gone into the tabernacle of the congregation to speak with him, then he heard the voice of one speaking unto him from off the mercy seat that was upon the ark of the testimony from between the two cherubims, and he spake unto him. Right? So this is, it's important that, again, these cleansing and these sanctification rituals be done so that God can dwell among the people. All right? This is a way to make the people clean and holy, at least for the time, so that God can dwell among his people. All right, without them, being reckless and dying like Nadab and Abihu. All right. Even with chapter 8, we'll read chapter 8, maybe not all of it, but we'll start with verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, right, so this is after the dedication of the altar. Speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, when thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give their light over against the candlestick. And Aaron did so. He lighted the lamps thereof over against the candlestick, and as the Lord commanded Moses. Right, so the menorah was like this, except it was giant. All right. And that's what would light up the tabernacle, is a giant menorah like this with the 7 lamps. And this work of the candlestick was of beaten gold unto the shaft thereof, and the flowers thereof was beaten work, according to the pattern which the Lord had showed Moses, so he made the candlestick, right? So it was like this, except this is like, I don't know what kind of metal this is, maybe tin or aluminum, spray painted or painted with like gold colored paint. That was like, it was beaten out of real gold. Like it was actual gold. All right. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take the Levites from among the children of Israel and cleanse them. And thus shalt thou do unto them to cleanse them, sprinkle water of purifying upon them, and let them shave all their flesh, and let them wash their clothes, and so make themselves clean. All right, so it's like a clean slate, a reset. Then let them take a young bullock with his meat offering, even fine flour mingled with oil, and another young bullock shalt thou take for a sin offering. And thou shalt bring the Levites before the tabernacle of the congregation, and thou shalt gather the whole assembly of the children of Israel together, and thou shalt bring the Levites before the Lord. And the children of Israel shall put their hands upon the Levites, and Aaron shall offer the Levites before the Lord an offering of the children of Israel, that they may execute the service of the Lord. Right. So even we read about the duties of the Levites that they are charged to do, but even before they can do that, before they can be around the tabernacle and all that, holy things are those holy things. They have to be sanctified in a specific way that the rest of the children of Israel did not receive. All right. And the Levites shall lay their hands upon the heads of the bullocks, and thou shalt offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering unto the Lord, to make an atonement for the Levites. And thou shalt set the Levites before Aaron and before his sons, and offer them an offering unto the Lord. Thus shalt thou separate the Levites from among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. And after that shall the Levites go in to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. Thou shalt cleanse them, and offer them for an offering. For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of such as open every womb, instead of the firstborn of all the children of Israel, have I taken them unto me. Right? Verse 17, for all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. You see that right there? So, if you recall back to the first Passover, right, where God spared all the firstborn of the children of Israel while they were in Egypt, that meant that they belonged to him. All right, those firstborn, because he didn't kill them in that moment, he could have, right? He very easily could have, but he chose not to. He chose to spare them, right? So, if God hadn't made this rule for the Levites, then every firstborn son of every family of all the tribes of Israel would have had to become priests, right? But God said, no, you know what? Instead, I'm going to take the Levites instead to do my service, all right? I'll take one tribe instead of taking the firstborn out of every tribe, all right? In the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. And I have taken the Levites for all the firstborn of the children of Israel. And I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and to his sons from among the children of Israel to do the service of the children of Israel in the tabernacle of the congregation. Right? So he says specifically Aaron and his lineage are going to be the priests, the heads of the tribe of Levi, but the Levites will help them and assist them in whatever they need them to do as far as the service of the tabernacle. All right, and to make an atonement for the children of Israel, that there be no plague among the children of Israel when the children of Israel come nigh unto the sanctuary. All right, so again, God has these specific protocols so that nobody gets hurt when they try to come near to him. All right. Specifically, he has these, I don't know if you would call them checkpoints, or I'm trying to think of the right word here. He has these blockades in place where if a random Israelite who maybe does not know any better tries to come up to the tabernacle, first he's got to, talk to the Levites, approach the Levites, right? The Levites, with their special sanctification, they'll either say, "Hey, brother, no, you've gone too far," or they'll be like, "Okay, what do you need? I'll assist you in what you need." And then obviously, them Levites can go unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and then they can go to the high priest, whoever's the high priest at that time, if that's necessary. All right, but God is putting these provisions in place to show grace and mercy to the people so that they don't have to die, right? So that they can have a form of cleansing, to have a form of cleanliness, to have a form of perfection, all right? And Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel did to the Levites according to all that the Lord commanded Moses concerning the Levites, so did the children of Israel unto them. And the Levites were purified, and they washed their clothes, and Aaron offered them as an offering before the Lord. And Aaron made an atonement for them to cleanse them. All right? So they're doing this whole sanctification process for the Levites so that they can do their service in serving the Lord. All right? And, the tabernacle, and if we would have read into the specific instructions, because the tabernacle has to move, right? And it has to be taken down. It's like a big tent, really. A couple different tents into one. So it has to be taken down and transported, right? So some people would take the curtains. Some people would take the pillars that hold it up. Some people would take, the vessels that go in the tabernacle. They would have different services among the different tribes of the Levites, all right? And after that, went the Levites in to do their service in the tabernacle of the congregation before Aaron and before his sons, as the Lord had commanded Moses concerning the Levites, so did they unto them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This is it that belongeth unto the Levites. From 25 years old and upward, they shall go in to wait upon the service of the tabernacle of the congregation, and from the age of 50 years they shall cease waiting upon the service thereof, and shall serve no more, but shall minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of the congregation to keep the charge, and shall do no service. Thus shalt thou do unto the Levites touching their charge. Right? So with the Levite office, it only lasted from the age of 25 to 50. You had to retire at the age of 50. You couldn't, do all those things with as far as, carrying the burden of the tabernacle, if that's what you want to call it. You couldn't do that past the age of 50, right? When it comes to your average Israelite, as far as like a man of war, that's from the age of 20 to 60. But we see here specifically with the Levite service is only from 25 to 50, right? And I believe when it comes to the high priest service is only 30 to 50. I may be off on that, but I think that's the case with them. All right, so I do want to touch on this instruction on the second Passover, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. So Numbers 9, starting with 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt. Right. So it took all this receiving of the law and receiving of the instructions on how to build all the holy artifacts, and the construction of all the holy artifacts, and the sanctification and purification of the priests and Levites, all that took a year. All right? Of the second year after they come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. Right? So It's approaching Passover season, and the Lord said, hey, don't forget about the Passover. In the 14th day of this month at even, he shall keep it in his appointed season, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof shall ye keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moses and before Aaron on that day. And those men said unto him, we are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back, that we may not offer an offering unto the Lord in his appointed season among the children of Israel? And Moses said unto them, stand still, and I will hear what the Lord will command concerning you. Right? So they weren't ready in the first month to keep the Passover. Right? The day had come and gone. They could not present the sacrifice on an appropriate day. Right? They could not keep the Passover with the rest of the congregation because they were unclean. All right? And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off. Right? So it's not just the uncleanness issue. Hey, maybe you're just not here. Maybe you can't make it back home in time. All right? Yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month at even, they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Passover, they shall keep it. You see that right there? So, I'll read 13 and then I'll explain. But the man that is clean and is not in a journey and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people. Because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. Right? So, we see here that again, the mercy and the grace of the Lord. He allows the people, hey, if you can't keep it in the first month, you can keep it in the second month. But he does specify, hey, this isn't you get to pick and choose which one you want to keep it in. It is, if you literally can't keep it the first month, you can keep it the second month. All right. But he also explains, keep it the same way you would keep it in the first month. Just keep it in the second month. If you can't keep it, in the time when you're supposed to, hey, you can make up, it up, right? Like make up work. All right. I just want to talk briefly, because we talked about this, I believe we talked about this when we was talking about Hezekiah, the king in Judah. That wonderful Passover that he kept and the congregation kept during his days, that was a second month Passover, because the Levite priests had not been sanctified and cleansed the way that they should have been by the time the Passover rolled around in the first month. So they had to, keep it the second month. All right. But that's just an example of, this law being kept. Because sometimes, that's what you got to do. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord, according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. Ye shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land. Right? And we read about that when we were reading about the Exodus specifically. The stranger has to be circumcised. All right? It can't just be somebody who just wants to keep it. Hey, I'm in town, I just want to keep it. And, well, you got to be circumcised. You and everybody in your house. All right? All the men that's in their house, you know what I'm saying. Verse 15, and on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning. So it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. You see that right there? So, and it's about to explain verse 17 a little bit more. I'll read this. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. You see that right there? So they were being led by the Lord. All right? That cloud, that chariot, whatever you want to call it, that fire, all right, it would come down, it would rest on the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Testimony was, where the mercy seat was, all right, where the Ark of the Covenant was, all right. it would rest, and whenever it lifted up, they'd say, okay, it's time to pack up, time to go. We got to go where the Lord's leading us, all right? And so that went on, and we'll see next week for how long. I mean, spoiler, it's 40 years, all right? It wasn't supposed to be that long, but it ended up being that long because of what we're going to get into next week, all right? So they rested their tents. No, 18. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord they abode in their tents, and according to the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even unto the morning, and then the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. All right, so even in this verse, it uses the word cloud for day and night, letting you know that it's not really changing from a cloud to a fire. All right, it's just that's how it appeared. All right, it's one of them what you would call UFOs today, UAPs, whatever they want to call it now. Those things that the people of this world cannot explain. One of those things. All right. Or whether it were 2 days or a month or a year that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of the Lord, they rested in their tents. And at the commandment of the Lord, they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So all praise to the Most High. At least at that point, they were still listening to the Most High. So, with that, I am going to close it out with Matthew 26 because, this is the gospel, all right? This is the good news when talking about the sanctification and purification of God and his people, all right? So Matthew 26, starting with verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this that this woman hath done be told for a memorial of her. So with that, hope y'all learned something. I say shalom. All right. Let God be magnified.